Welcome to this meeting of the Wingecarribee Local Planning Panel on the 3rd of October 2021. November 2021. Thank you. I declare the meeting open at 3:30 p.m. My name is Julie Walsh and I'm the chair of today's panel. Also sitting on the panel today are expert members Alf Lester, who's an architect, planner and urban designer, Scott Barwick, who's a town planner, and community member Bill Davison, who's also a qualified civil engineer with extensive experience in engineering in local government. The meeting is being live streamed to Council's website and the recording will be made available on the website after the meeting. Could everyone please turn their mobile phones to silent? Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledges the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call the Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here today. There are no apologies and there are no declarations of interest. The procedure for the meeting will be as follows. All panel members have read the business paper and received a detailed briefing from Council staff in relation to both items on the agenda today, and they have also inspected the relevant sites. The panel is charged with determining the development application and providing advice to Council on the planning proposals on the agenda today. There are no speakers for item 6.1, and in respect of item 5.1, we have invited the applicant's representatives to dial in to answer some questions by the panellist. We haven't done that before, so there might be a bit of patience required with the technology. Once we've heard from speakers, there may be questions, and then we'll move into closed session to deliberate, and we'll return to the public meeting to announce our decisions, and that will be live streamed as well. The minutes of the meeting, the aim will be to have them placed on the Council website within 2 business days. The first item, as I indicated, is Development Application 21/1890, demolition of buildings and works, subdivision of land and carrying out of works to create 22 residential lots and works for the purpose of a road at 54 and 56 and 58 Robertson Road, Mossvale. So I'm just going to check whether the applicant could be called.
I do have this engineer here. So,
is the microphone going to pick that up, or it would be better if you went down there? Yeah.
Let's see if that works. Have the technology will travel. Hi Dean.
Oh, hi Dean.
Hello Dean, sorry. We've just set you up, so I just had to move my laptop next to the speaker so the panel could hear you. They'll obviously be able to see you on the screen. And I'm just going to call Michael on my phone, so we've got both of you that the panel can actually talk to in some way.
Okay.
Sorry about this, we've got 4 different kinds of technology working at the same time and they don't work in sync at the moment. Here we go. So that's Dean Iganoff, his engineer.
Hello, Dean.
Hi Dean, I'm Julie Walsh, the chair of the panel today. This is Scott Barwick, town planner, Alf Lester, town planner and architect, and Bill Davison, the community member who's also a qualified engineer.
Hello.
And I'll just give.
So we'll just get the engineer as well, because we have a number of questions about the proposal which are mainly engineering questions.
Oh, thanks.
Have you got a set of the plans with you?
Yeah, I do. I've got them open.
Hi Michael, it's Nancy. I'm just with the panel now, so if you could give us a call as soon as you get coverage, that would be great. Thank you. That's part of his problem, is that the coverage in Wingelow is patchy. So he did say they were having problems today as well with the coverage. For the phone.
Well, we've got the engineering, most of what we're
Yeah.
talking about is the engineering side.
Yeah.
I'll keep calling.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Davidson, did you want to start with your questions?
Okay, all right. Perhaps if I'll just address the drainage issues, both the water coming in to the top of the subdivision across Robertson Road, and the collection. There's no detail. The plans that we have are very light on detail, and so the questions I have is how you're going to address the capture of that water. It appears that the water will be captured in a pipe. I don't know what the size of that pipe is, plus overland flow. And where's the overland flow going to run, other than, as indicated on the plan, straight down the middle of the proposed new road? Then the system seems to be in two distinct parts. Is that the water generated off-site over Robertson Road continues down through a large pipe, which I assume will capture 100% of the water coming onto the site. Is that the case? It proceeds then down to lot 21, and then goes at right angles across the road, right angles again within lot 1, and then does a devious path plus another right angle to a structure, a twin cell box culvert structure across Wembley Road, and there's no details of how that's going to occur. I just question the fact that there's at least 3 right angle bends, which hydraulically is not a good idea. So that's that part. And then the other part is that the drainage from the individual lots and the road is captured in a separate drainage system, which ends up with a discharge into a detention basin, which from the plans that we have, seems very light on in detail to say whether it's appropriate or not. And then has there been a check on the twin cell box culverts that go under Wembley Road? Is that adequate to take the additional discharge that's going to occur from this proposed subdivision? And is there any need to enhance that structure? And what sort of structure would go in to convert from a round pipe into the twin cell box culverts that are shown on the plans here? The other concern is that the structure, the detention basin, is shown on what I assume is going to be lot 1 of a private block, which then becomes a problem of future maintenance. Also, public, there need to be fencing enough to keep the public out of there, and that raises design issues from which we can comment on later. Others can comment regarding the actual structure itself and how it should be made, which is more compatible and perhaps more aesthetically pleasing than what's shown on these plans. Thank you.
Okay, there's quite a few points raised in that. I guess to start off in terms of where we were saying that the draft is not on detail, I can assure that I've prepared a 3D model and we've undertaken drains modelling of the Overland flow path. So I'll start with that. There is a considerable catchment that sits upstream of our subdivision. It's about 14.8 hectares from memory. I think for good design, some fair flows there. We thought it's imperative to separate that from our subdivision flows.
Sorry, can you just speak up a little bit more? We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Should you move it over?
You can move it closer. Everyone just go there.
Sorry, we're moving around.
Sorry, volumes are a problem.
Yeah.
You've unplugged. That's it.
Have I unplugged this?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
You're right.
Yeah.
Does this need to throw?
No, you're right.
You want me to point it over that way?
That's not, yeah, it's going to be too far away.
Oh, okay.
And that should still be linked. We're not going to have anyone up that end, are we?
No.
No. Yeah, if you could just speak up a bit, that would be good. Yes, sorry, we're doing our best.
Let me get
Yeah.
up in.
I just wait a second, we're just doing one more thing. Yeah.
And then just unplugged.
Okay.
It's a bit tricky here, so.
Yeah, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
let's try that. That's as loud as we can get the surface pro, unfortunately. Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
I still need you to speak a bit more. Louder.
Sorry?
Can you speak a bit louder?
Yeah. See if I can. I'll switch my headphones to something else.
Just speak louder, like I'm doing.
You can yell at
Oh, okay. Okay. So, what to unpack sort of with what you've just said. Like you, I guess in terms of where we're discussing the detail, and sort of saying we're light on there, perhaps with the drafting. You know, it's a concept that we've drawn, but I can show I've done a 3D model, and I've also sized all the pipes, particularly for this upstream flow. I'll start off with the basin itself, being in lot 1. So that's on private property, correct? And that would be future maintenance for the owners of lot 1. The reason that's purely because of Windsor Shire Council policy. So that basin has a dual function. It's both water quality, so we've had to address Water New South Wales lobby requirements, and it's also for OSD to be able to get our on-site detention. In the past, we've always found that Windsor Council has no desire to take over water quality basins as their own assets. So for us to put that into a drainage reserve, that would be very difficult based off all our experience with council. Hence, we're sort of forced to put it into private property, and as such, we sort of want to try and minimise that area as much as we can to try and minimise that burden on one particular owner. Hence, we sort of gone for retaining walls to sort of maintain a buildable area, you know, for that basin. I'll now address, I guess, the point that was raised about capturing the flows. So again, I've prepared a full drains model and I've undertaken the calcs. We haven't presented all that detail in the plans, as keeping it in conceptual form. Yeah, so there's a current culvert going on Robertson Road. I think from memory it's 900. It's been a while since I did these plans. We've then got a series of surface inlet pits to capture those flows, a bit of a berm and an overland channel. So for that 1% AEP flood or flow, there'll be a combination of pipe flow and overland flow. Once it does reach the road network, the road's going to have curb and gutter. Council has allowable limits to have gutter flows in those major events. So if there is spilling from that last pit in lot 12 and it crosses the verge, then those flows will be contained by the curb and gutter. What were some of those other points? And as I said, we did do a drains model. So I think the other point raised, I'll now go down to the other end, Wembley Road. So that's where the existing twin box culverts are. So what we're proposing, currently that's open style head wall. The road we're proposing to widen to sort of match between the two curb lines, which is about 3 metres worth of pavement widening. A curb inlet pit will sort of be built over the new inlet where we're extending those box culverts to. from there, I think the question raised was about capacity. So as I said, they're existing culverts. There was a comment raised about we're increasing the increased flows from the subdivision, and that's what we've demonstrated in our stormwater and OSD report, is that we've undertaken the modelling to size the basin accordingly, so that we can demonstrate that our post-development flows don't exceed our pre-development flows, as per Interim Australia Council policy. Is there any points that any points I haven't addressed yet?
I'll just make a comment then, if you like, on the main pipeline that you're running down to the box culverts. How are you going to convert from the pipe into the twin box culverts, which are not very high? They're only 450 high. And what's the size of the pipe coming down the road, down the new road? You said it's a 900 across Robertson Road, but is it 1200 or whatever down the new road? And how are you going to convert from that into those smaller box culverts across Wembley Road?
Yep. So I don't have my drains open, model open here, but I'm pretty sure it was like 1,050 mil. So next I was up to 900. So I think, as you did mention too, it does a series of bends, and I guess, as I said, I've undertaken the modelling. I guess the tricky bit we found was, because that verge, we want to have extended verge and a road network that connects smoothly down to Wembley Road. But because that verge is actually currently quite steep as it is, we're going to be cutting out of Wembley Road. And to be able to get the stormwater and to get cover over it, and keep that pipe in the road reserve, that became very well. It just wasn't working. So the pipe's joined by a series of pits, and as it gets to where the culverts are, so those culverts will no longer have an open head wall. Those box culverts will be extended to the new curb line, and there'll be a pit built over it. So the circular pipe will connect to the pit, and the box culverts will also connect to that same pit. It'll be a stone-through connection. I don't see any technical difficulties with the connection.
I think there is a technical difficulty. The fact that you're going from the water coming over a metre in diameter, discharging into a low twin cell box culvert, and not building a proper converter there, and also I still think that having 3 right angle bends is not the best way to go. That it'd be far better to go, say, on a 45-degree angle across that corner. You're not encroaching onto lot 1 anymore, but you'd have a direct line across to the connection of the box culverts there under Wembley Road. And they're just details that are probably difficult to go through at discussion time like this, but I really think it needs to be revisited and be made to operate much more seamlessly.
I disagree in terms of, so I'm not too sure if I'm familiar with the drain software that obviously we do, and we will be required to submit to council with the CC. With that, each pit, and depending on angles, that you have to apply a correct pit loss coefficient in terms of those energy losses. And we've run that model and found that there's capacity. I certainly don't think 90-degree bends in stormwater pipes at a pit is unheard of. I think if we went at 45, so we've got 2 pits at 90, and then we've sort of got 2 pits, I think each about 30.
Yeah. But even so, from a practical point of view and from a future maintenance, having those 3 right angle pits so close together, and then the structure that you're going to convert from a round pipe into the box culverts, I think needs a lot more attention.
Oh, and I think at a construction certificate level, or subdivision work certificate level, sorry, I expect council would demand that level of information. I guarantee they would. and I'm confident I've done the modelling to demonstrate
And,
compliance with the current standards.
and with the basin itself, you've got a 5 metre long high flow weir. That's your overland flow for the basin? That's just going to flood across the road into the houses on the opposite side, isn't it?
So that would flow into the curb and gutter.
That's if the curb and gutter can take it, but do we know how much is going to actually flow over there, and it's going to go over the road itself and onto the other side?
Yeah, we can certainly model it if we haven't already. So it's been a while since I've looked at this project, but I guess in the current situation, so there's an open drain that runs from culvert to culvert. At the moment, if those culverts exceed capacity, well, that we're going to have the same situation. So if the flow path I see that would happen is, I guess, should that basin exceed capacity, it reaches the weir, which we do need to have a weir location point to control where that flow will go. That will, I guess, first of all find its way onto the southern curb line of Wembley Road, which doesn't currently exist, but will when the road widening takes place. Where that will then travel, I think, so that isn't actually the side point where that existing culvert is. It will then flow, in the easterly direction down Wembley Road to the next point. If it does cross the road, then it'll then end up in the next curb and gutter on the northern side of Wembley Road.
What's the size of the pipes that's picking up the stormwater off the individual lots and the road where it terminates there into the basin? Again, you've got right angle bends there as well.
Is it right on the Wembley Road frontage?
Sorry?
Is that on the Wembley Road frontage in lot 1?
I'm talking about the one coming down the new proposed road, where you've got the pipes coming down, picking up the road drainage and the individual lots, and then they discharge into the basin. What size are those pipes?
They would sort of generally range from a 375. That's the minimum pipe size council allows in the road reserve. Perhaps up to I don't have a drainage model block here, but it'll range from 375 to 600 for that.
So the discharge into the basin is a 600 pipe. You're saying?
Yeah.
The final one, the section.
From memory, it's about that.
And so the outlet pipe, what will that be? 600 or more? And that goes again into this structure where you're converting from the large pipe, the metre plus diameter pipe, into the box culverts. So you've got that extra going in as well.
So if it's 600 coming in, it'll actually be slightly smaller going out, and that's the way an on-site detention basin will work. In that the flow rate coming in will be greater than the flow rate going out, and the storage volume that we have that takes up that peak flow. And if you to sort of sketch what's called a hydrograph, which measures flow over time, it flattens the curve. You know?
Is that based on a 100-year event or a 50 or 20 or what? Basin.
That's measured. That's based on storms between the 5-year and the 100-year. So the 100-year is the minor storm event, right. And the 100-year or the 1%.
So your storage in the basin is based on a 100-year. Otherwise, this spillway is going to be, as I started before, is going to spill across the houses across the road.
So I think that there'll be. I'll get my drains model.
Yeah, it's probably detail that we shouldn't tie up this meeting with. But if you look at those issues, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, any basin we've ever designed, it's a challenge for every single one. This is hardly unique. So if I look at my drainage report, I've got my 1% flood model. So there is 0.287 coming over the weir. So yeah, I think there will be a minor flow cut going over the weir, in that 100%. But I've always found that
It won't feel like minor to the people downstream. That's the only problem. Yeah.
So I guess that's only assuming it would end up in private property, and I don't. So with the curb and gutter, there's a road there. Those flow rates, I don't.
Curb and gutter only won't take it all that.
Okay. So if that's something we have to demonstrate with the construction certificate, I'm more than happy to. That's again, it's not a. I don't see that to be a unique problem we've ever faced.
Yeah.
And if it's found out that augmentation is required in the existing network, we can't demonstrate that we have safe depths and velocities, then so be it. That's the design process that we.
And why do you need the overland flow path through lot 12? That's what I'm guessing 6 metres wide.
Good engineering is to always have an overland flow path.
Yes, it is.
Even if you design the pipes for the 100-year flow, there has to be an overland flow path. If the pipe was to block or the pit, then if that water's to go somewhere, then
okay, so that's overloaded. So the main pipeline and the other pipelines are not working. So it's going to run straight down the road and straight over Wembley Road, isn't it? No. Together with the overland the flow out of the basin. I think we need a lot more clarity as to how you're handling the extreme conditions.
So I can only design, and I will be doing a really bad disservice to my client if I designed this beyond what the standards were. So I designed the major system for the 1% event, the minor system for the 5 year or the 20% AEP, and that's what I can do because that's the current engineering standard. So if we're looking at PMS, that's not currently in council standards. So I can design this for the 1%. I can demonstrate my overland flows. I can demonstrate all my calcs, and that's something I would do at the construction certificate stage, so the subdivision works certificate stage, and that's when we present detailed drawings of exactly how we're going to build this. Plans we give to a contractor who builds it. We've got much more detailed calcs that any development engineer can audit and check that we're in compliance with Windsor Carriby Shire Council and Australian standards.
I'm just concerned about the people on the other side of Wembley Road. They could end up getting overland flows from a number of parts of this subdivision, and it'll be up to the council of the day to address that and end up in court over the flooding and damage. That's all I'm concerned about.
So so I think Mr. Lester had some questions about. Well, I'll let you go.
Thank you. I won't pursue the mechanics and the detail of the flow. I do have some issues, but I'll leave that for the moment. I noticed that you've got reference to rain gardens and rainwater tanks for each of the proposed lots, yet I can find no specific reference to how they will be applied. Can you describe the intent there?
Absolutely. So the intent, and I guess just to set the framework, being in the Sydney drinking catchment, this gets referred to New South Wales, and what we have to do is tick off. They have a NORBE assessment called neutral beneficial effect, and with that we measure sort of we model the water quality effects being.
Sorry, to short circuit you. I understand that, but is there any particular location that you've proposed for the rain gardens? Because there's no reference on any of the plans that I can see. I can see a wording, but I can't see any reference. And rain gardens usually take a certain area, and it's not clear to me how they would actually be implemented.
Yeah, so in my music report is where I've detailed it's where I've got the sizing. So each lot, lot 1, is proposed to have a rain garden of 5 square metres. We're proposing that they're built with the dwelling, and that so obviously I think if they're built beforehand, they tend to end up being filled with sort of sediment from the construction process. And they have to be reconstructed anyway. Plus, I think it's better practice to give the individual preference of its location, and then they can sort of configure it into their garden and landscaping. So hence, there isn't plans in this step in the concept plans. What would avail from the condition, and I can guarantee they will, is that we really need to provide a OEMP, an operation and maintenance plan, for the water quality functions that will make their way onto the ADP instruments as positive covenants. And with that, in that document, that New South Wales has to approve prior to our subdivision certificate. They will,
So basically, be further.
That will specify what has to be provided to that tick box. Sorry.
Okay, that'd be a further land take on one or more of the proposed lots.
I understood it was all lots except lot one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And that comes out to a slight, like, I work in many sort of local government areas. I do have a slight frustration with the policy of sort of just not taking over by retention basins and forcing so either you look at one big and one treatment that would sort of hand over to council, or you'd look at sort of a large scale solution to try and sort of share the burden across the lots. That's the approach we're taking here, because I think we've found that we're not really able to hand over these bioretention basins as assets to council. It's just not being accepted.
Okay. With the detention basin design, and I'm talking now about urban design and urban quality, my understanding that you'd have to basically fence the proposed design of your basin in lot 1, and that would inhibit anybody falling into what could be basically a swimming pool under a Q100 event, for example.
Correct.
Yeah. So visually, that means that whole area shown on your plan is going to basically be closed out and inaccessible, because otherwise it would be a danger in its current form.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to be clear in my mind, because that's the whole entry to the estate, and yet it has that impediment in it. I'll switch to a couple of other issues. Have you considered Council's requirement to try and ensure accessibility, pedestrian accessibility? In particular, have you looked at the possibility of connecting the southern end of the proposed road to Robertson Road by pedestrian network? For kids who are living in the area and would want to head back to town?
I don't think
I think this is our training thinking.
Yeah.
On our plans though, not connecting to Robinson Road, there's an existing footpath in Wembley Road.
Yeah.
So we're proposing on our plans, and I imagine council will condition this anyway. Then we're going to extend the path across the frontage of the road, and then we're proposing footpath on one side of the road.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I think that's schematically shown on our plans.
I suppose the final one is that did you consider any alternative proposal for the detention, the bioretention area, to make it a little less impactful on the overall way the element is perceived as part of the entry sequence to the subdivision?
In terms of aesthetics, is that right?
In terms of aesthetics, yeah.
Ultimately, that really is the lowest part of the site. And we want to be right next to those existing culverts where the main drainage needs to go. Yes, it will be fenced. It is going to be in cut. I don't believe that you can't. That it's impossible to make that aesthetically pleasing. I think driving past, all you'll see is the fence, sort of based on other basins that I've seen constructed. So it's very much sort of sitting more so in cut. If that works. Yeah, I think I've seen plenty of these, and I think in terms of sort of trying to burden lot one or leaving it is I think we're best doing that by keeping it small as we can, but by still ticking our Wood New South Wales and council OSD boxes. In terms of OSD, other options I would like to consider would be an underground sort of storage in the road network, but I know that council has a policy in those areas not to accept that. So if I was doing another LGA, I would consider looking at underground in the road network for my OSD component, which could make the basin a bit shallower. I guess by putting 5 square metre rain garden on each lot from 2 to 22 is it helps offset our requirements and keeps that basin smaller and less of a burden on the future of lot one. So I'm not too sure I've answered your question there.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
It's not my strength.
It's a difficult one, but thank you.
Thank you. So have you seen the draft conditions?
No.
Oh, okay. So there's a draft condition 67 about stormwater facilities maintenance, and basically it requires a positive covenant to be registered. I'm assuming it must be on all lots, and it says that it will require the proposed stormwater facilities to be maintained in a safe and functional manner, and shall make provision for council to conduct maintenance on the facilities at the owner's expense if the stormwater facilities are not maintained to the agreed standard. And so my concern is, and I think it's a concern shared with the other panel members, so lot 1 has this facility on it which services all of the other lots, but all of the responsibility for maintenance and presumably insurance of that facility falls to the owner of lot 1. Is that something that you have commonly seen?
Yeah, I've seen that condition on almost every DA consent I think I've ever seen for a subdivision that involves any stormwater facilities, and that even goes for two lot subdivisions we do. In terms of is it fair to put all that maintenance on one lot owner? I don't really like that. Not necessarily, but as I sort of said before, I've been working in Winds Cove now for 10 years with Land Team, and I don't think I've ever seen them take over a bioretention basin. They've always sort of refused. So we've got a goalpost set by Water New South Wales, who set our water quality targets, which is fine. And then I guess we've got council, who would be the authority to maintain or responsible for the maintenance of these items, who are just simply not interested in that maintenance themselves. So complying with what I know the council accepts, I think it leaves us with the best solution, best outcome. That's all. So
what would be involved in the maintenance of that? I don't know anything about drainage, so
yeah.
What actual physical action would be required by the owner of that lot, and what sort of cost would we be talking about?
Yes, I'm certainly happy to send over an example of OEMP that we do if you need to see one of those. But it's pretty well for a system like this. De-weeding, sort of checking for scour, checking for blocked pipes. Every 6 months or after a big storm event, you want to sort of be doing that. But yeah, I can certainly send an example of OEMP. That's not a problem for something similar we've done.
So yeah, it's just my concern is that if this was a community title subdivision, for example, that facility could be a community lot, and then everyone in the scheme would then be responsible for it, be shared over all the lots, and there'd be there'd be like a mechanism. But if this is just one owner, I mean, there'll be a positive covenant on their title, but whether they've actually paid any attention to it or not is another thing. So I'm concerned about the possibility that it actually doesn't get maintained properly and the consequences of that. Do you have any solution?
I just feel like we're discussing very general issues that exist very widely and broadly across all subdivisions like this in Windsor Carriby. And I understand the concern, but I feel like this is sort of a procedural matter. I mean, I think that very commonly, to build a subdivision, you've got to build a road, which is taken by council. To treat that road, you've got to put it into prior retention. And if council's not willing to take over a basin, it's unfortunately going to have to end up in private property. Now, I think having a shared maintenance of it would be very difficult in the type of subdivision. And I think more likely to lead to problems than having a single responsibility, a single person responsible for it. I mean, all lots will be responsible for maintaining a rain garden. Just lot ones will be a fair bit bigger. And I assume when the subdivision goes to sale, the price of that lot will probably certainly be reflected in extra maintenance that they have to take on. So I do really sort of want to get that obviously basin as small as I can and try to sort of share a bit of the load across the other lots individually with their own gardens.
So is it possible to increase the size of the rain gardens on the other lots to make this biobasin less of an issue, or is that, as I said, I don't know anything about drainage. But
I wish it was that simple. So the road itself is the biggest polluter when it comes to what we're looking at for the knobbing modelling. And hence that's why I have the two different pipe streams. So I want all the upstream flows we're considering clean, it's not part of our development. We want to bypass them through the site. Otherwise, if we put them into the basin, then we're going to end up with some sort of ridiculously big and that can't be maintained. And also sort of potential scale issues that flows in there. Yeah, I think you can increase the modelling and try to increase those basin sizes on lot 222. I guess I don't think I'm going to be able to use that basin much at all.
Okay. And this, I think this was touched on by Mr. Lester. I'm not sure if we got an answer. So the proposed detention basin as proposed will require a fence. Is there any possibility that it could be designed so that it wouldn't need a fence? Did you ask that?
Not quite.
No. Well, I think there was some technical term, wasn't there?
Whether you could do something that's more environmentally sensitive.
Yeah.
Basically need a bigger area.
Sensitive?
Would that require more area?
I would assume the answer to that question would be yes, but it would take a much greater land take.
Yeah, so we're going to have a bigger area impacted. And as I said, I've tried to minimise that area as much as I can.
Yeah.
In terms of improving aesthetics, I don't know if it would. We're still going to have a basin that's cut into the ground. I guess, I'm not really too, we could replace it with batters instead. But I think fencing might still be required in terms of depth during those storm events. There's a bit of a grade on this site too, so our batters will sort of extend out a bit. I'd be reluctant to want to go for batters on this site.
So why would you be reluctant to do it with batters?
Oh, well, I suspect with the depth that we're going to require, we have to make it very sort of wide and shallow. It's still quite possible we need to fence it defensive basin like that.
Should just take up the whole lot. Okay. Yeah, so take up the whole lot. I didn't have any more questions. Did you have any questions?
No,
No.
not.
Thank you for talking to us at such short notice. It's been most helpful. Thank you. So I think we had some questions for the applicant. Sorry, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No.
Thank you. So I think we've got some questions for the applicant planner.
I guess the question I would have the council to get, if we could be advised, there seems to be the tension that the approach the applicant's got is, or the engineers explained to us, is because this facility won't come into public ownership, they've taken the approach to minimise the land take.
Yes.
Which I can understand in a dual occupancy subdivision or something like that, because it's servicing only that lot as an example. But when we've got a circumstance where this includes the treatment and management of water from a public road, I just, if council could clarify its policy position in that regard, because to me it seems to be two very distinct circumstances where it's a facility that's dealing with public water. I can see that there's a circumstance where, well, perhaps that should be a public asset. Where it's a facility that's only dealing with private water, I can totally see why council wouldn't want to take on that responsibility. And an example on an individual basis would be the proposed rain gardens, which will be providing a contribution to the water quality improvement. It's dealing with the water generated off a future dwelling on proposed lot 4, for example, and of course it should be fully at the cost and responsibility of that landowner. But if council's policy position has a distinction between dealing with public water off a public road as opposed to totally private water, if that's not too abstract a concept.
I think what the applicant's engineer said, that because this detention basin performs two roles,
That's why
OSD role, including of the road, and a water quality role for the lots as well as the role. So I don't know whether we can explore that any further in this public meeting, whether you're able to respond to that or not, Nancy.
I probably need to get a development engineer, and I don't know if there are any around at the moment. So
I understand the question, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Exactly. So that's what we've been struggling with, is that there's all these lots, and this poor lot at the end gets this giant detention basin that they'll probably have no idea what's really involved, and they might have something on their title saying that they have to maintain it, but it just seems to be setting up a problem. Well, it's certainly a problem for that lot owner, and maybe a problem for the community if it's not maintained, and then it has consequences and
you could
people over the road get flooded.
Sorry, in an extreme event, you could have the basin overflowing, and you could have upstream at Roberts Road that overflowing and coming down the road, and that the owner of lot 1 is going to say, well, it wasn't all my fault.
Yeah, so I'm not sure we can take it any further.
I don't think you can split the two
at this stage. So have we got the applicant?
no, I've called 5 times more than.
Oh, okay.
I sent him a text as well, and he's just not. He's in Wingelow, and I know that.
Okay. So just say the other issues that we had were, and I might just let everyone know that. So we obviously have an issue about that detention basin and the drainage. We have an issue about the garage remaining on proposed lot 10 and the sequencing of the removal of the driveway from lot 11 and the new access to lot 11 and the
possibility of pedestrian.
Yes, I'll say the possibility. It seemed to us on site that that it would be really desirable to have a pedestrian and cycle access from the new road through to Robertson Road, and so we would have liked to ask the applicant what they thought about that, because obviously that would require a rearrangement, and lot 1 is substantially more than 700 square metres, although it does have that impediment of the detention basin. So I don't think we can take that any further at this stage, and we'll just have to have some further deliberation about it after the public meeting's over. So we can then just move on to the other item, which is item 6.1, a planning proposal in 2 parts. One is to amend clause 7.2 of the Wingecarribee LEP to remove an inconsistency with other clauses in the LEP, and a proposal to amend the minimum lot size provisions for land at Hill Road and Villiers Road from 8,000 square metres to 3,000 square metres. There are no registered speakers for that item, so we will deal with that in closed session as well and come back to announce our advice, which will be live streamed. So unless there's anything else, I propose to close the public meeting at 4:25 p.m. I think we'll probably be at least a half an hour in our deliberations, and then we'll come back and announce our determination on the DA and our advice on the planning proposal. Thank you.
Can we stop streaming?
Is it